Ken Knight not only became a household name in both radio and television, he also helped pave the way for many African Americans to get into broadcasting.
Just my uncle. To me.
His niece, Martha Washington George, is a radio historian.
They asked him to come up to Atlanta and be the program director to open up the first Black-owned radio station in the United States.
Knight is credited for starting a movement in broadcasting in which more African Americans would ask for their music and announcements to be on the airwaves. He also is credited for starting training programs that prepared Blacks for careers in broadcasting.
He and his peers had a great impact on the industry because it gave people the opportunity to come into broadcasting who would not otherwise have gotten that opportunity.
If you're in broadcasting or you're an entertainer of sorts, Ken Knight played a big part in opening the door for you.
Ken Knight died in Jacksonville on September 12, 1973. He was only 64 when he passed away. He will be known as one of the most accomplished African-American broadcasters in history who helped create the National Association of Television and Radio Announcers. 3 years ago, Ken Knight was inducted into the Georgia Radio Hall of Fame. A little more than a week from now, he will be inducted into the National Black Radio Hall of Fame. But for right now, we honor the man who opened so many doors to so many broadcasters like myself.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. This is Ken Knight. You know, formerly I was program director for W.E.R.D, and it's a pleasure to say hello to you. You've had people from all walks of life telling you all the wonderful things about the station, so we won't go into that. I'd just like to refresh your memory with some of the stars. I say stars because to us they were. If you remember October 3rd, 1949, there was a young man named Joe Starr. He pulled the switch on W.E.R.D about 6 o'clock that morning, and that was the beginning of an era of broadcasting unknown to the broadcasting industry. It was to mark the beginning of an era in which you would find members of our race in every executive branch of radio, from the manager, the president of the corporation, right down to the custodian, and the sales branch was represented also by members of our race. So let's run down briefly now and talk about some of the guys that really helped to make history by putting W.E.R.D on the map. Joe Starr, Bob Brissendine, Dave Bondu, and later his wife Mame, Herb Gershon, Ray McIver, Jack Gibson, and many others on the air. In the office we had a little boy named Randolph, a young man I should say, from Morehouse College, and Miss Audrey Dantley, one of the best that ever did it. That's right. And then there was Mrs. Allen, Mrs. Brown, Mrs. Melvin, and many others. In the sales staff, there was Rod Harris and Albert Sadler. And always behind the scenes was the very likable and affable J.B. Blayton Sr., president of the corporation, who supplied the money to make this experiment that W.E.R.D proved so well could be just another radio station doing just another job. His son, J.B. Blayton Jr., the colorful and capable manager, still in the saddle of W.E.R.D and several other enterprises, who not only pulled the strings, but was the behind-the-scenes operator. In the early days of 1949 and 1950, you heard such programs as Bouncing with Bobby, Morning Meditations, Ray McIver, and then we had Sweet Chariot, yours truly, followed by Lunch Call with the zaniest team in radio, Herb Gershon and Jack Gibson. And then there was Johnny Martin, who followed with Gospel Train. Dave Bondu with another very fine program. Later, his wife, the only Mr. and Mrs. Sepia in Negro radio or in America. And then there was Johnny Martin's Red Hot and Blue. Later on, Jack Gibson with The Sound. And there were many other colorful programs that perhaps are not being heard on W.E.R.D at that time, or rather that's not being heard now, but was heard at that time. And it was my pleasure to be associated with some names that have made history, such as Larry Dean, who is now program director for a station in Cincinnati. I'm no longer with the station, but connected with a station in Jacksonville. And such members as Johnny Martin and Jack Gibson, Bob Brissendine, managing a station in Texas. All of us had our early background in radio that developed well, what we would like to think gave us a background of development that suited us for our present positions. But back of it all is W.E.R.D. And this, the 5th anniversary, we'd like to say congratulations, many, many happy returns. And to you, the wonderful people of Atlanta, without you, it would not have been possible. You not only gave your support, listener-wise, but sales-wise as well. So I'd like to say to you in Wordville, we remember the Atlanta World W.E.R.D. Health Jamboree. We remember many, many wonderful shows from the auditorium. We remember the dramatic productions on Sunday afternoon. And we remember W.E.R.D., period. So long, gang. Thanks very much for listening, all of you wonderful people. And to Paul Brown, your present program director, to Albert Sadler, your sales manager, and to J.B. Blayton, Jr., your station manager. Good luck, and God bless you.